Hi everyone, I'm Sam Fountain, also known as Winged Assassin. This is something that I rarely do, which is, if you're being shown this video, most likely there are two reasons why. One is that you're either very interested in Philippine authors and their stories, or Philippine stories, which I am, since I'm Philippine American. That, or you're probably being forced to watch this for an example of a book review. Because basically, this is something that I usually do in high school or middle school, but this is something that I want to do because I really enjoyed the story of this and I want to share it. This is called Bone Talk. Bone Talk is created by a Filipino author named Candy Gourlay, who is now living in London, UK. Bone Talk was considered a child's novel, but honestly, it's actually nice length, 250 pages, and the theming around this is a becoming a man story for a young boy who is 10 years old, who is a Filipino tribes boy. It takes place in 1899 and was called Bone Talk. And funny enough, Bone Talk is actually where my nana is from, my mom. So that's kind of a funny thing when I told her about the book and it opens up on the first page saying that it takes place in Bone Talk. So the summary of this is, like I said, a coming-of-age story for a Filipino tribes boy. And it takes place during the year 1899. And if you're a historian or a history lover like myself, 1899 in the Philippines was during the time of the Philippine American War, or called the Philippine Insurrection, depending on who you're asking and who's telling the story. Basically, so our boy named Sam, the same name as Sam Cook, or actually, hang on, Samkad. Sorry, named Samkad. He wants to become a warrior, and getting ready for known as the cut, basically circumcision. Basically, for the tribe there, you get circumcised and you become a full-grown man. But as he's struggling to understand how to become a man and what it means to be one, he gets word of his long lost brother, or step brother, or a brother. You see, this is kind of confusing because if you're Filipino or Filipina, you know that basically any friend that your nanay or nanay is friends with automatically becomes your aunt or your uncle just by being friends. And so Samkud's brother from his mom's friend has to come and help make a man. But during the same time, the Philippine American War has reached to the steps of tribal life in the small isolated tribes of the Philippines that haven't been conquered yet or haven't been assimilated yet with the full independence of the Philippine government. Because during this time, the Philippine government has been established during the Philippine Revolution, but talking with some friends over the Philippines who are very interested in the pre-colonial era of the Philippines and so forth. There was going to be a civil war. They said there was probability of a civil war happening after the Philippine Revolution, which is not surprising, since over in Ireland, almost a decade after the Philippine American War, they had a civil war after their fight for independence. But But while that is happening, Sam's brother tells them that Americans are coming, and then we get thrown. Then our main character gets thrown into a more confusing and conflicting series of events of what it means to be a man and what he has to think about these Americans and what is going on. So, in the end, when finishing this whole book, which can take like a day or two of reading, like again, this is considered a children's book. It really shows how America basically conquered the Philippines, and shows how it happened and what were the views of it from the Philippine stance. Because the author Candy, when she was trying to look about how the Philippine American War happened, it was mostly through the eyes of the Americans, basically saying that they were conquerors, of how they thought of it, thought of the natives, the local people, and she really didn't have any luck of seeing anything about it from a Filipino's point of view, only for one. So she wrote this book, even though it's fictional, it's based off of true events, and just like how history is gray, like a bunch of history is gray, and very few of it is black and white. We see two looks of Americans. We see the typical American soldiers who are basically a majority have racist and xenophobic ideology, thanks to the decades of the horrible era of American Reconstruction after the American Civil War, and which was basically the Southern politicians ever since the assassination of Abraham Lincoln were doing their best to control the South after Black Americans gained their rights of being citizenship and such. They were basically fighting to reestablish the antebellum status quo of the South, where white Americans have more power and more freedom than Black Americans and other minorities. So you have the soldiers who were basically treating the native and local Filipinos in the story as like savages or playthings. But then we have another American named Mr. William. Mr. William wasn't clarified of if he was just a regular American explorer or a missionary or someone like that. But it was shown that there are two sides of the American coin, the good and the bad, and it shows that Sam's brother, who knows Mr. William, isn't deluded thinking that every American is good. He knows that Mr. William is good and he's American, but majority of America is very bad. And well, it kind of is. You see, the Philippine American War ended when President Roosevelt came to power, and when he came to power, he officially declared the war over and shamed both sides. And it was his predecessor, William McKinley. So even during this time, even though it was bad in the Philippines because of the American invasion, the Philippine American War, it was during this time when President McKinley was in charge, and he was assassinated by an anarchy Polish worker who had enough and decided to assassinate him. If he wasn't assassinated and went for maybe another term or anything, and I said another term because the two-term limit thing that we have today wasn't really a law in America at that time. It was mostly like a voluntary traditional thing. And the reason why is because Franklin Roosevelt was known for during his acts in the Great Depression, trying to bring America out of it, and also leading America in World War II, started, he was elected 4 terms. Now, McKinley wasn't, elected out of the good heart of the people. More like he was elected because he was a puppet for the captains of industry, who basically lobbied and bribed and controlled most of American politics. Something that you can probably see today in modern times. And during this time, even if McKinley ended the war, Philippine American War, and he was so in power, you won't see Roosevelt, who would try to disband the captains of industry, break monopolies, and create national parks and such, and all these regulations. Instead, McKinley will probably call up the Philippine national beauty of nature and scenes like is known today, and he would probably just install factories and such, and would easily let the barons of industry or capitalism to just gobble up the Philippines for their own pleasure and greed. But in the end, and basically the war tactics that was used and that was incorporated in the story of like warring tribes was used by American army to isolate and get involved with local politics and pit one against the other and choose which other side they want to pick. And this is not something, even though it's meant to picture the American army as bad, this is like nothing new. This was actually a tactic that was used by the conquistadors, by the Spanish Empire, when they first settled into Central and South America. They basically allied themselves with a local native tribe, and they would use them as like a meat shield to conquer the rest of the area. But in the end, I really enjoyed this book. Bone Talk, to me, is something that you should read if you're interested in works by Filipino authors, or you want to learn more about a point of view from of world events of history in the Philippines, through the eyes of fiction. Because, like I said, even though this is mostly fiction, it was based off of real events and spoken through the eyes of not just like an American, but more like through the eyes of a local Filipino. So, thank you, and hopefully you enjoy reading it as much as I do.